Good morning from New York. I am your personal, rational, political mystic, and perhaps a clownish old man. But anyway, um, what will I bore you with today? Just pretend that I'm your grandpa, and you have to listen to me so that I won't be upset, have a heart attack. And out of respect, today's subject, your brain and inner mind communication, and mythology, and religion, and NDEs. All right. And I've got a few notes over here on the side. I'm gonna, improve on just a minute here. I don't forget. Okay. Gee, do you have anything better to do than listen to an old man lather on? Glad you didn't. No, there's it's very important what I'm talking about. Don't let me distract you from that. This is a healing and growing process for your spiritual life. But it's, once you get into it, practice it, and begin to understand some of the things that I perhaps poorly explain, you'll see just how incredible it is, and how many things it speaks to in society and the individual. A lot of it is involved with empathy, and then it's about empathy and basic awareness, and experiencing that, within yourself, within your own inner communication. Let's see. Well, first of all, it says here on my notes, let's see, the creator of all you imagine. Yeah, that's what your brain is. If you're imagining it and perceiving it, even, it goes through your brain. What you see is, what you experience is produced by your brain. Of course, in conjunction with your eyes and your ears and other things, but it's all filtered through your brain. You don't see the entirety of reality because it doesn't relate to what it took for you to survive and your species to survive. So, not important. Um, some animals see and hear things that we can't see or hear because it's important to them. And, all right. So, within the inner mind communication practice, the brain is the part of you that imagines everything that's going on in that communication. It imagines you, and then you go, "That's me." It imagines, it creates for you in your imagination the your inner counselor and your inner caregiver. All of these, and it is how you get in touch with basic awareness. Your awareness is not universal. It's what your brain gives you. It is the ultimate, you know. It's the brain knows what you're going to decide before you decide to do it. Sorry, they've shown it in the lab. And let's go on to number 2, the higher self. Well, the brain is, in a sense, if anything, the real you, perhaps. What you have as a self-concept is a derivative of that real you. And it's the supreme controller of, what you see and what you hear and everything. It's in the inner mind communication, it is all of the parts you play and the things that you do. So in a sense, is it the real you? Yeah, and in religion, it's talked about like that in yoga. That you strive to realize the higher self, the Paramatma, which is your very best friend, and yet also somehow your real self. And the self that is in touch with the universe and higher divinity. So there's that connection that I want you to think about. You agree or disagree, and it's fine. And it has a relationship to your dramatic self. The dramatic self in inner mind communication is the part of you that experiences more directly, emotionally, what's going on in your life. I call it the kid in you. Your brain, I call that your artist. But actually, it's how you imagine brain, this higher power that's one with the universe. This part of the energy flow, right? Well, kind of. Escapism, they know better. But something like that. And there's a relationship going on there. And yoga is all about getting in touch with that. And in Hinduism, there's this concept of the Ishta Devata as your connection to your preferred divinity, which is kind of like how you personify the artist in you. Maybe you call it Jesus. Maybe you call it Buddha. Maybe you call it Moses. That's not likely. It's not part of that religion. They're not going to do that. But Jesus was part of that religion. Yes. It was a derivative of Judaism. Yeah, it was a branch, as was Islam. Anyway, yeah, not that any one of them is better than any other. It's making difference. That's up to you. But you personify that artist. You have a relationship with that artist. You can talk to it, I'm going to ask baby Jesus. Go ahead, ask your artist. I call it my muse. sometimes. But that's the way it's your access to divinity in a sense. And your higher self is also the part of you that you look up to. It's in a place where it's above your dramatic timeline, able to look at the whole story of your life. In the religion of Vaishnava Hinduism, that's called the Watcher. It's the part of you that watches the whole movie of your life and enjoys it no matter what. It's a fun movie. At the same time, it's able to have a relationship with you, to create memories for you, experiences for you in your imagination and sometimes in your dreams. Well, definitely your dreams, but you don't have that sense of. Well, it's a little different in the dreams. Let's just leave it at that. But yeah, it's still the brain producing all that. And your dreams is where a lot of healing takes place. It's works together with the inner mind communication. Yeah, the God Man concept here on my notes right here. You will see it's number 4. The God Man concept. That's talked about a lot. That's they say that's Buddha and Jesus. In mythology, it's this connection to divinity or the divinity itself. And so, and Krishna. So it's in mythology, they had this sense of the brain, but they didn't, back then they really didn't know what the brain was or what it did and all that. So, but they had a sense of it. So, and they would attribute it occasionally to a particular living individual, and certainly that mythology has a powerful impact, and that's where the idea of a mystic comes into play. A mystic is a person that's getting in touch with that higher self. As Jesus said, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father. But in fact, if you've seen anybody, you've seen the divinity. If you look carefully enough, that's that's in the Bhagavad Gita. That the divine spark is in each of us. That's their view. It doesn't get ignited. It's all it can, but it's always there. It wasn't implanted by the God man necessarily, but it sure could use the help. And in fact, that spark in you is the divinity. So when we think of divinity, we also think of needs and they're being met. So the brain is the best meter of needs, has to be empathetic in social contexts. That's part of the God man. That the God man idea is a person who has all of the forms of empathy, creative empathy, ability to see things from many perspectives, to be very imaginative, and the ability has the ability of objective empathy, able to be a guide, a counselor. Um, and also it has the loving ability of compassionate empathy, able to really identify and understand you and help to heal you of your damaged faith and love. Your faith and love, therefore, is a kind of connection that you have, kind of trust that can grow in your dramatic self. Okay? And that comes from an experience of this kind of love. Now, how is this healing? Oh, we could probably go into that. Damaged faith and love creates, as needs attached to helplessness to get them met. That could be, in some experiences, the need to get away, or the need to fight back, or the things you couldn't do to meet your needs, and just the inability to get the love that you needed, especially when you're looking at ACEs or adverse childhood experiences, or CPTSD, complex PTSD, where it's about developmental needs being involved. And you can, of course, have both PTSD and CPTSD at the same time. It's more likely after childhood that you're going to have just PTSD. But that PTSD is laid on top of the traumas in childhood, which just it can be both. And that's my understanding. Correct me if I'm wrong in the text, make comments. Okay. Look it up, see what others say, and present your argument. But there it is. That is the God-man concept, and 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 I'm going into how this relationship can be healing. And you see a lot of people's lives turn around when they surrender to their chosen God person. I don't say it that way because there are Ishtadevatah concepts and so on. And there are ladies that were mystics, who were connections to divinity. So whatever you choose, that's comfortable with you. But their lives have been turned around. And why? Because that higher self in them, the brain, as you exercise these forms of empathy, helps you to be able to handle the helplessness. It helps you to not feel so helpless in the present, so that you can relive and unlearn the helplessness of the past. That helplessness around need can be looked at in two different ways. One is the impact of it, which, because it's like I explained with like beach ball before, it means that the regional need is symbolized and generalized, like the force hitting a beach ball spreads around the beach ball, whatever it's taking. The force that it absorbs, it's spread out. And it also has a lot of push to it. And that means that you are kind of pushed away from your real needs and feelings. It's like the beach ball got pushed away from where it was. So you can look at it that way. You also see it as forms of helplessness that that meant finding a comfort zone in that generalized, symbolized way. A comfort zone where the anxiety of that helplessness isn't so strong. So what happens is that the push is still there until you've resolved it. It's a present reality. That memory has now that imprint of sorts, which I don't believe that it's completely indelible, but that imprint, the brain changes that situation you're in to a situation that's more comfortable, less threatened, where you're more in control. And that means changing the original need into something symbolic that is more attainable. That's called a neurotic struggle. Now, that neurotic struggle, it's all well and good, it saves you when the actual helplessness is taking place. Because the anxiety would, could be like threatening and certainly sickening. So your brain is trying to cope, like the beach ball absorbing the impact. It's trying to cope, trying to hang on to some level of comfort zone. But that comfort zone is completely very much challenged by the helplessness, which no mammal can handle. Just can't. Human beings have this ability to generalize and symbolize more so. Not to say that some animals can do something similar. Now, the way the healing takes place in this relationship with the artist, who appears to you as the artist and also as your caregiver and your counselor, is that these different faces of the artist, including your own face, these different faces are all involved with this symbolic relationship you have with some of your inner needs. And so this symbology can't hold up as you begin to comfort yourself using these perspectives. Because objectively that it's not making sense, this symbology, right? You get that thing that you thought was more attainable and it didn't satisfy you, for instance. Duh, what's going on there? So the objectivity shakes that symbolic comfort zone, even though you're using it to comfort, which is the only way to use it. Well, the best way. And creativity looks at things, creative empathy of the artist is looking at things from different perspectives and reimagining um, things. And the more you do that from different perspectives, the more creative you become, the more that begins to shake that symbolic unreality, um, that false reality that has become part of you. And the compassionate empathy, of course, which opens up the capacity to feel safe, to express. Um, it's like an echoing, like empathy, but with intent to comfort. That gives permission to feel. You know, it's safe to feel. To understand that, just you. I always tell the story that little Susie skins her knee. But little Susie's playing with her friends, and so she dusts herself up and she goes about her play. But when Mama shows up, she might come over and say, "Mommy, you know, that skin my knee," and Mama helps her out with the situation. Well, honey, he says to Susie, um, didn't you skin the other knee just like this one this week? And isn't it all better now? Yeah. And so first she has that compassionate empathy, helping the little girl to feel just with her presence. And then next, she hits her with a little objective empathy. And then she goes for the creative. Okay, well, how about let's go get some ice cream? Yeah, change the whole picture. So, Susie's happy. So, compassion and empathy helps you feel safe, feel what you once couldn't feel. And that's very important. Now, all of this is an interplay, can be seen as an interplay between yourself and your higher power, your brain, your muse, your artist, the imaginer, your imagination. Yeah, you created a word there too, didn't it? I don't know why there isn't a word imaginer. Now there is. Anyway, let's see. I think I need to go a little further with the healing, of course. Well, what about when you get hurt before you have words to express anything about it, or any self-concept whatsoever? Well, that's a kind of ego transcendence. I mean, when you're just having simple awareness without the social language factor thrown in, um, that's makes things a little harder to cope with things. Um, but it's also a more direct connection, um, in a sense, to the brain, because you have no filter of a self concept going on. You just they call that ego transcendence, because once upon a time you didn't have one. So in this realm, damage that occurs during that time in your life, um, there's a simple kind of repression going on. Sometimes not so simple. But it's not helped by um, having the skills um, to exercise the social gifts and learning that are the forms of empathy. So I hope you can follow this. I'm not the best explainer, and I hope you're on track with me here. You're gonna take in what you can and think about it. I'd hate to think I had me as a teacher. And that's all I had. Sometimes. What a mess. Anyway, humor is a gift for the artist, right? Can't see things from different perspectives. Could be. I appreciate a joke. All right. In that area, you've got three different abilities which later on developed into these empathies. And one of them is focus, the ability to focus. You had that ability as an infant. You also had the ability to play, be playful. You're not at the level of creative empathy, which is the creator of the play, but you can be playful. Yeah. And you can, just kind of experimenting and seeing what happens. And you also have the ability to express feeling or the cry of some kind. So that's and that expression, of course, is what developed in social circumstances into the ability to help people to express, which is compassionate empathy. So focus, of course, that ability is, if I didn't already say it, is what developed into objective empathy. You can see a classroom and the teacher's going, "Are you paying attention?" You need to pay attention in order to learn and in order to be objective. All of these things, though, not just the practice of these three things, focus, play, and expression, which is part of inner mind communication, doing that without language. Well, how is that comforting? Well, if you go in and you're doing it on purpose, that means that you're having a kind of conscious control. There's a little distance there. You're not totally regressing into an infant state. There's a part of you that's aware that you're tapping into that infant state. And that's where you get these kind of experiences in religion, like, I have no self, or myself is one with everything, or my self could be anything. You get that sort of thing. Because there's no ego, and there's a part of you that has the self-concept that is um, trying to make sense of the more direct connection to the brain that your simple awareness has, unfiltered, not as filtered by a sense of ego or self. So these three things, they are comforting. They approach it in inner mind communication with the intent to comfort. And that means, with any of these practices, it can have a tinge to it that's more positive or more negative, but it's what feels right and good to you. That's why I like the mystic path. It's some of the benefits of it over having someone trying to guess where you need to go. I'm really not into talkie therapy. I mean, it has its benefits, but it's certainly far short of the mark. And I think unless therapy is coupled with an individual attempt to grow within, and to get in touch more with who they really are, which is a wonderful, wonderful, amazing, miraculous thing. And that's who you really are. When you're depressed, you don't think about it that way. But that's who you really are. The amazing brain, that's who you are. The amazing, wonderful, beautiful brain. Mm-hmm. And that is one with all the energies of the universe. In that sense, you are one with the universe, and the universe is our attempt to, or the multiverse is our attempt to see the absolute truth. And the absolute truth personified, again, is the artist within you. So the absolute truth personified is that. So God personified was the God-man, Jesus or Buddha, and so on. Now, even though the Buddha said, he didn't. It's not about gods or whatever. If there's a God, it's suffering the same as everybody else in this interrelated, interrelative world. This, yeah. So, but still, so with Buddhism, it's more the absolute truth. Ego transcendence. Do a lot of meditation. There are three forms of meditation, which look at as attempts to be in touch with the infant mind. In yoga, it's the three Vedic yogas, or the basic yogas, which involve focus and play and expression. But the way it went about it was that it used breath, which is very close to your feelings, to get in touch with your feelings so they can be expressed. And they used, that was prana yoga, dhyana yoga, which is focus on your sensations and your experience. That's in a broader sense like mindfulness. And mantra yoga was the use of sound, which they condensed and used into repetitive mantras so that the language itself becomes meaningless. If you just keep repeating it, right? It just loses its meaning. And there you are, connecting with the infant mind, the brain. Absolute reality. No subject and object kind of experience. And that's one illusion that the ego gives us, is a subject and object view of everything. The subject being yourself and everything else an object. There's limitations to that kind of thinking, obviously. And it's a bit of an illusion because everything is relative and everything is connected one way or another. So in a sense, the idea of a permanent, unchanging self, as the Buddha pointed out, is, I see, well, he said, I didn't find that. Very polite way of saying that. But, yeah. So if you, an inner mind approach, communication approach that I use is different than the three yogas. It uses breath and expression, kind of prana yoga, but it combines attempt to express feeling. So it's all of the things in inner mind communication have to do with your feelings and what your real feelings are as opposed to symbolic ones. The real self, some people say. Um, and instead of the simple mantra yoga, repeating a phrase over and over again, which you can do, create the sound yourself, and then we can exercise the ability to be playful with your feelings and so on. You can sing it, and that gets you in touch with your mood and your feelings. There you can, without language, sing the blues. But that distance is comforting, right? It helps you to deal with any helplessness associated with traumas at that time in your life. Okay, and all of these things, all of these traumas, one is laid on top of another, on top of another. So that people with ACEs or adverse childhood experiences are more likely to get PTSD and warfare, with the full-blown symptoms. So, yeah, not to say that there isn't still some effect on anybody. They are more vulnerable. So a lot of times before you send people to war, you might want to check into their ACE score, they call it. Right? Yeah. See how this relates to other things that are really important. Think about government, uh, church, media, and business. These are reflections of what's going on in you, in the individual. Business is about trade. It's where the tire meets the road. It's where you're having that more dramatic emotional impact. And how do you get those basic needs met? By trade in society. Yes, that's the institution. And called business. But that trade needs education. It needs the perspectives, creative perspectives. We get those from the media. It needs subjective perspectives, and we get that from governments. And we'll go into that. And we get the compassionate perspective from extended family organizations, which legal terminologies we call church in this country, I think. 501c3, which is, nonprofit. But you can also see that in each one of these institutions, all three of these perspectives exist. So that you've got, in business, you have to be concerned with how you have to be creative. Yeah, a little bit creative. You have to be a little bit objective, and you have to be a little bit compassionate. And each of these institutions, all four of these perspectives do exist. Now, the virtues from the virtue that you get as you grow is a greater amount of goodness from compassionate empathy, integrating that. And objective empathy gives you the virtue of truth. Art gives you the artist or the creative empathy gives you the virtue of artfulness, the ability to appreciate things and make the best of things in creative ways. And the virtue from business or the dramatic self in you that we see is trust. And that level of trust has to do with your health of a society or the health of you. Now, it's all about trade. And yeah, but if that trade is not integrated with these other perspectives, then it's unfair trade, and that causes violence in society. The more unfair it is, eventually there's going to be violence. Human beings are very prone to that sort of thing. Oh, are they ever? We are a mess, yes. But and it's democracy, and people say, "Oh, you're not a democracy. We're a republic," and some other term that's I forget what it is. But anyway, democracy is, in general, in the broad sense, is people being able to have a voice in their society. And it isn't, just a simple vote, obviously, that runs any country. It's not just the rule of the majority over, the minority that can be allowed. So yes, democracy has to be tweaked. But still, in general, I, in a broad sense, with all of these perspectives included and all these institutions in place, I call that democracy. I know that it's not the same, but it's a better democracy. Let's put it that way. Real democracy. Democracy that works. If something doesn't work, to me, it's just not that real. So a democracy that works has all these perspectives. And an individual that functions better and is more healthy has all of these perspectives. The ability that the gift of inner mind communication is that you can work on this yourself, which is very helpful for your sense of personal empowerment, which is a very helpful thing to have when you're battling helplessness. Now, number 6, NDEs. NDEs mean that your dramatic self is overwhelmed, and you are highly symbolic. You, creator of your imagination, goes into hyperdrive, and you see yourself apart from the body itself, and you have an experience of that is really out of this world. Sometimes paranormal things happen in the course of that, and we don't understand what these seemingly paranormal things are, even if they are paranormal sometimes. But it does occur, but that's not the point. I'm going to end this with what I like to say at the end of all my videos. It's an honoring of all of the beauty and the wonder in one person uh, of another. So I would like to honor that in you, that wonder that you are, the wonder in me, that brain, that amazing connection to divinity and the absolute truth, and everything that's incredible in life, and that love flow, which inner mind communication principles point to, um, meeting of needs, that potential. That in me would like to honor and greet that in you. And that word is namaste. Namaste. And have a good day, y'all. And don't forget, subscribe. That helps out. Helps get the message out. Subscribe. Share the video if you like it. Give it a thumbs up or down. And make comments. That's my simple request. And I hope that you will enjoy switching on the light of inner mind communication. Have a good day, y'all.